Everyone we saw him interact with was on the exact same playing field, the exact same level as Ali was. But he went out of his way to make a distinction between him and everyone else there by calling them sir, by giving them titles. So don't overvalue anyone else's contributions to you, and you make sure you get what you're owed as well. He was about to win, and he literally humbled himself by that definition and lowered himself so that he was on the same level as the losing player, who was Sungwoo at that time. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, and over here we discuss life topics by analyzing characters from popular TV and film. So I've been gone for a little bit, but I am back, at least for the time being, and I am here to talk about everyone's favorite boy from Squid Game, Ali, and we are talking about humility. We're looking at what it looks like to be overly humble and how we might be able to fix that by looking at Ali's character. So first, let's take a look at the actual definition of humility. Humility is the quality of being humble, having a low self-regard or a sense of unworthiness, particularly in a religious sense, where that humility is in context with some type of deity or someone that you worship, feeling a sense of lowliness in comparison to whatever deity or high person or high place that you're referring to. Now, the reason I use that definition, which is actually from Wikipedia, is because I think this is probably the one that pops into people's head when we think of the word humble. A lot of people's minds go straight to a religious context in which we're talking about a person having some type of humble spirit or something about them that is lowly in the way that they present themselves, someone who keeps themselves in check in terms of how they classify themselves with other people. They don't put themselves above others. In fact, they tend to put themselves in a much lower category than other people. Now, from that definition, I think it's pretty clear to see how something like that can be overdone. Something like that can be taken to an extreme and thus taken advantage of by other people, right? And this is really Ali's entire story. He definitely fits this description. He moves in a way that makes you think that he doesn't think that highly of himself, but he does honor, regard, and think highly of other people. His insistence on calling other people by their titles, sir this, sir that, to Sungwoo and to his other teammates. The fact that it took him so long, and it took him being in an extremely desperate situation to go and ask his boss for his wages. It took him so much to go up to a person that owed him something, his wages. He had worked for them, to just ask for what he wanted, because he was humble. He didn't want to confront anybody, especially his boss, about something like that. It took him a long time in an extreme situation to even get there, to ask for what he needed. So we see the sense of humility in Ali almost right away. After he begins speaking, you can see this is the type of guy that he is. So like I normally do in these videos, I go over 3 tips, 3 tricks that we can use to address the issue at hand. This case, of course, being overly humble. Maybe you find yourself being overly humble and you want to know how to work on that. So tip number 1. Number 1 is to stop being impressed by other people and thinking that they have it all together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put a disclaimer on this one and say this doesn't mean that you lose respect for everyone and you just treat everybody like trash and like they're peasants because nothing phases me. It's just to say that realize that you have things to offer. You know things that other people don't. You have talents that other people don't have. So there's no need for you to be in such awe of what other people can do just because you can't do it. You can see something, you can applaud somebody about it, and you can go on about your day not feeling any lesser about yourself. And that's how we should be doing it. With Ali, I already kind of talked about how he refers to everybody with this title. Everyone in Squid Game is in an extreme, desperate situation. They are in deep amounts of debt. Some of them, their lives are in danger, like the gangster crew. Maybe some of them, their lives weren't in danger, but their livelihood was in danger. You had Sungwoo, who was in danger of being arrested. So everyone he met in Squid Game, everyone we saw him interact with, was on the exact same playing field, the exact same level as Ali was. But he went out of his way to make a distinction between him and everyone else there by calling them sir, by giving them titles, by being so impressed by what everyone was doing, what everyone was able to do. Another aspect of this was that he was an immigrant. He was from Pakistan, I believe. So there were some cultural things that came up, some references, some understanding that he didn't have. At different parts of the game, he would have to ask questions and they would have to explain it to him, and you could see his countenance just fall. I don't know how to play that game, or I'm not aware of that context. I'm sorry, I just don't know. There's no need to apologize for not knowing. Who are you apologizing to? The people who are in the same amount of debt as you are? But that's what overhumility can do. It can make you feel like they know these things. They've been here before. They have context. So I have to cower and shrink myself because I don't. And that's just not true. You don't have to do that. And you don't have to be so impressed by what everyone else can do. You learn some skills and you be impressed that you can do some things. You make sure that you are doing the things that make yourself shine so that other people can see what you can do. And we know that the character that Ali was probably the most respectful to was Sung-woo. My fave, but that's for another video. He was very interested in expressing that humility to Sung-woo. And he said it was because he gave him the money for the bus fare where he needed to get home. He let him use his cell phone, those types of things. And he was very appreciative of that. And there is nothing wrong with being appreciative for something and showing that and expressing gratitude to the person who helped you out. Nothing at all wrong with that. But keep it there. Don't take it to the next level where you just begin to worship someone because they helped you in a tough situation. Because what often happens is that person, if they're not healthy minded and if they're looking out for only themselves, not everyone knows how to handle praise. You set them up to be able to exploit you whenever they see fit. They know you think highly of them. They know you think that they know more than you because you have expressed this underling vibe spirit to them, and they will often begin to treat you as such. Now, this took a while to happen. In my opinion, I thought Sung-woo was actually very good about not taking advantage of Ali in the beginning. We know that changed, but in the beginning, when Ali was doing all of that, thank you, sir, blah, 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 blah. Stop calling me sir. We're all the same here. Not everybody's going to do that. Some people will take advantage of you immediately. As soon as they sense that or smell that on you, you are their prey. So keep that in mind when you are displaying how impressed and grateful you are to everybody around you. All right, number 2 is kind of an extension of the one I just said, but it's important. Is this idea of feeling indebted to someone else because you're trying to be humble. So someone does something for you, someone gives you something, and it was a true gift. It wasn't some type of arrangement. It wasn't a deal where you agreed to pay them back or something like that. They just did something kind for you. The tip here is to stop feeling indebted and to learn how to receive and learn how to receive and take things gracefully. This is a tip I hear when I'm talking about like compliments and stuff. Like people say, learn how to take a compliment, and it's so true. Because when you either reject the compliment by putting yourself down, or you immediately switch it back on the other person.
No, you look good. Girl, I'm nothing. I'm okay. Either one.
When you have that kind of attitude towards things where you just immediately feel the need to humble yourself when someone else is acknowledging you, it puts you in a position where people respect you less, and it puts you in a position where you're more likely to be mistreated because you just let people know that you are uncomfortable with the good things about yourself, with being acknowledged, with people celebrating you. And for Ali, we're gonna go back to that scene where Sung-woo let him use his telephone and he gave him a little money, a little change for the bus. Ali was so appreciative of this, and we understand, like we just said, these people were in some deep financial trouble. So money for the bus was a really big deal. But the point here is that this was not a transaction. Sung-woo did this out of the kindness of his own heart. Ali did not owe him for this. Now, if he chose to pay him back in some way, that was his choice. But Ali did not owe him anything because this is what Sung-woo chose to do. And when you're a person who already is overly humble, and then you feel like you have to pay someone back, even though that wasn't the agreement, you overdo it. You overdo it and you put yourself in a position where you're at someone else's mercy, and you've completely flipped the situation because they were trying to help you at first and do something nice for you, not thinking that you were going to pay them back, but you flipped the situation and now you're indebted to them, which leads us into kind of section B of the same point, is to, on the flip side of that, which is don't overpay someone back for something that was a gift. On the flip side of that, make sure you get what you're owed. Going back to the situation where Ali waited to the very last and extreme moment to ask his boss for what he was owed. He was so willing to pay back Sung Woo for doing those couple little things for him, but he wasn't even comfortable to ask for stuff that he had earned by working hard. This is not a good combination, and it makes people lose respect for you. Now in the show, his group, consisting of Sung Woo, the main character, the old man, and Ali, his group was pretty kind to him. They shared with him, they explained things to him if it needed to be explained, that kind of thing. But like, let's just say for instance that they were not very nice to him, that when he came over and they were forming their team and he asked to join their team, that they were like, nah, we're good on that. Then Ali could have just said, hey, well, main character, I forget the main character's name, I don't know why, but I just forget his name. The main character, I saved your life in that red light green light game. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't even be alive right now to form a team. So I suggest you let me in. Now, would Ali have done that? Absolutely not. He would have walked away from them telling him no, like a poor little baby, and started looking for another team because he's overly humble. He immediately took their answer and took it as a, I guess I'm not good enough for their team, and would have walked away. The truth is, people do not respect overly humble people who just accept their plight and everything that they're given, and accept mistreatment and accept putting themselves on a lower rung than everyone else. People pretend like they like that. They'll say that they like stuff like that, and this is something I'm currently learning about people. The things that people say that they like in other people, the good qualities, oftentimes are not respected qualities. If you got someone, a friend or anybody else with those qualities, a lot of times those people are the ones that get mistreated. What people really do respect though is someone who stands up for themselves, someone who values themselves, and someone who may be humble in the sense that they don't place themselves above other people like a jerk face, but doesn't place themselves below anyone else either, like someone who wasn't created as an equal human as anybody else. That's not cute, and that's not something you want to keep practicing. So don't overvalue anyone else's contributions to you, and you make sure you get what you're owed as well, and this will earn you respect. Now, our third point is going to cover a scene that was very sad to a lot of us when we realized that Ali had been tricked by Sung Woo into losing the marble game. Our third point is start thinking logically from the other person's point of view. Typically, overly humble people do think from the other person's point of view, but they don't think necessarily in a logical way. They think about how the other person is interpreting their confidence. And they don't want that other person to think that they are thinking too highly of themselves. So they do things to ensure that the other person realizes and knows that they are not thinking too highly of themselves, that they are not putting themselves above you. And that's their focus. But the reality is, other people, and let's look at Squid Game, of course, specifically because we're looking at Ali, in this particular situation, there was no time to think about how highly someone else thought of themselves. No one cared. This was life or death. There was no time to think about anything else but survival and getting that 5, 7, 10 billion gazillion won. That's all there was to think about. And anybody in that game that was thinking would have realized that and realized what they needed to do to survive in terms of the other players. Ali clearly did not realize this, and this is how he got tricked in the series. From game 1, red light, green light, we saw immediately how selfish these players were, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. We all know these people were in desperate situations, so this isn't a call on whether they were right or not. These were desperate people who were acting for themselves. All the allyships and allegiances that were made were eventually broken, And everybody that was thinking was aware that these are temporary alliances that we are making because we're in a desperate situation. This is not about us coming together in some loving way. In the marbles game, Ali was so concerned with being fair, with being just, and in the way that he was playing the game, he was so concerned with those things that he couldn't see what was happening right in front of him, that someone was using his humility and his willingness to demote himself because he was winning the game, he was about to win, and he literally humbled himself by that definition and lowered himself so that he was on the same level as the losing player, who was Sungwoo at that time. And Sungwoo took that as an opportunity to do essentially what he had to do in terms of winning the game, because that's what he was there for. So if you don't want to find yourself in that situation, make sure you think logically from the other person's point of view, and you will find yourself figuring people out and keeping yourself out of situations where people could potentially take advantage of your humility. Okay, you guys, that is all I have for today on this topic. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a little something. If so, give this video a like. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you guys in the next video.